morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'd like to thank James and Yan, Emma and Shikai for inviting me to give a talk and share with you what I've been researching for the last 1 year. And they've given me a very interesting title, which is Predicting the Endgame of the Blockchain Revolution. First of all, I'm not in the game of prediction. Neither am I really onto the end game. So I actually, after watching Game of Thrones, I started searching for the definition of what end game means. And this is what I have. The ultimate agenda or desired consequence of a planned series or event, often elaborate and unknown to outsider. And in the business world, it's really an ingenious business strategy for the purposes of market domination. And in movies like Game of Thrones, it's often nefarious and the secret objective of super villain. I'm none of that. So I'm in a fix, but I'll try to do as much as possible and share with you my research in a very light-hearted way. I realized that I can never predict the future because I have been in hedge fund and I was a stockbroker before 20 years ago. Every time I predict something, it's always wrong. So I can only try to see what the desired outcome that I'm looking for and perhaps what the industry is looking for to share with you. And I understand there are a lot of corporate participants and bankers and from financial institutions. So maybe it's a very good platform for us to have a conversation. And it is a fact that blockchain cannot solve all problems. But it is also a fact that few people realize that if you're inclusive and there is a convergence of technology, we can use blockchain to solve a lot of problems. And that includes IoT, big data, AI, cloud, and so on. We just have to use as many technology as we converge them together. So there are a few things that we need to look at. Value, because a lot of us come to the financial sector. We always talk about valuation, and it's difficult to use the old metric to talk about valuation. So here, I have a few different dimensions to look at how much blockchain is worth, and perhaps to trigger some new research in the area. And the first one is that blockchain is of great value when trust is expensive to establish. So when the cost of trust is high, that's where blockchain become very valuable. And that, especially in finance, in trade, loan, assets, and capital raising. We have seen all those in a lot of supply chains financing, ICOs, IEOs, and so on. And securities, especially cybersecurity, privacy protection, environment, and as well as communication. I think a lot of people has neglected communication, especially the linking blockchain to communication. I'm going to talk more about that later. And the second one on valuation is that blockchain without a token is less valuable. All blockchains are valuable. Private blockchain, consortium blockchain, federated blockchain, and so on. But without the token, will be less valuable. And it's important to understand that token is to incentivize desired outcome. So you have to design a token in such a way that it's tradable, okay? And once it's tradable, there is value, and there's a market discovery of its value, and it has to be trusted using different consensus, and then it acts as an incentive to facilitate the desired outcome. So the token has its value, and that is a very important characteristic of blockchain design for the entire system. So this is something that we need to think about. And of course, when I use blockchain here, it's a very generic term. There's design thinking behind blockchain, which includes cryptocurrency and distributed ledger technology and so on. And a token is useful for digitalization so that new business model is being invented. It is important for fractionalization so that if you have a livestock, you can divide it in many different parts. Like a cow, you can own 1% of a cow. That's the advantage and the beauty of a token. And also hedonization, so that you could actually break out the characteristics of something that you own. Like a property, you can only buy a property as a single price. but the distance to the MRT, to the underground, the distance to the park, the view of the park, these are all hedonic characteristics. And the token can split the characteristics and make it tradable. So that is the advantage of having a token and digitizing something which is of a single tradable asset that can have hidden characteristics that can get traded. In economics, we call them shadow prices. But with digitization, we can actually have a lot of hedonic prices that we can discover. And the third one will be when blockchain is exclusive. You talk about only your blockchain. You talk about only private blockchain. You talk about only consortium blockchain. You talk only about open blockchain. But the fact is that you've used all blockchain. And each blockchain function as a node in the entire blockchain space, then the entire ecosystem is worth a lot more. So that's important to be inclusive in terms of across all blockchains. And that's not enough because we need to use other technology like AI, big data, IoT, cloud, and so on. So it has to be a convergence of blockchains as well as convergence of technology to achieve borderless transaction, borderless trading, and that is the key to increasing the value of a blockchain when you think about blockchain design. Now, what will actually accelerate this revolution? I think that is a very important question. We have been in this space, a lot of us in this space for 5 years, close to 10 years for some of you, but we find that even with education, there is always a lot of misconception. And if you look at history, most of the time, there will be certain events that trigger mass adoption. So I'm just putting on the thinking cap and say that maybe under certain circumstances that we see mass adoption. For example, we have a crisis. Okay? For example, where there's a lot more wealth inequality like what we're having now, that we want to empower people by distribution of wealth through blockchain, or when the authorities decide to have financial reform, or when there's business motivation, which is the best, so that people act in their own business interests, and where there's geopolitics like what we're happening now, when G20 is reduced to 2S, and the 2S is two supply chain block. So when there's geopolitics, a lot of people may want to align their interests, especially the weak, the small, the neglected. And also when there's a fear of the Skynet, well, the Black Mirror that we have been watching is again about TV and movie, right? Black Mirror, and when there's a lot of hacking. And all these events happens, your blockchain, your cryptocurrency will increase in value. And each time all these crises happen, will accelerate the revolution. Education is just part of it, that we need to continue to do it. Research is another part, but you really need a lot of events to trigger that. And usually these are some of the things that will trigger the mass adoption. The first one, crisis. When there's a loss of trust, and some of you, if you're as old as me, back in the 2008, 2009, we had the global financial crisis. What happens was that the bank have a lot of toxic assets in their balance sheet. So no two banks have the same balance sheet, and not many banks have very transparent balance sheet. And even if they are transparent, nobody could unwind the structured product that they have. Given that kind of circumstances, it's very difficult for you to do credit analysis. So whenever one bank issue a letter of credit to another bank, other banks may take it with a pinch of salt, and they are unsure whether the other bank can actually deliver what they promise. And there was a severe loss of trust among the banks during the crisis, and the trade actually dropped tremendously to about 20-30%. And everything stands still. And you could see that any manufacturing processes that need different parts couldn't have their parts delivered because there was just no LC. The trade would just stop. Imagine they have cryptocurrency during that period, and you can do instant settlement with final settlement. Then we could have smoothed out some of this crisis. So sometimes you require a crisis to let people think harder why they need cryptocurrency, why they need blockchain, why they need payment tokens. And a lot of central bankers, including like Central Bank of Canada and Singapore, and they all have seen this crisis. They understand how important to have cross-border payment, frictionless, 24/7 with no disruption, even if there's a loss of trust among the banks. So it is important to realize why some of these central banks are doing what they do, and they are working in the area of DLT or blockchain sometimes, because they are trying to do trials to ensure that there is an increase in efficiency as well as risk reduction, and also for payments to be cheaper, faster, and especially safer, so that the counterparty risk is reduced to the minimum. Okay, and this is from Accenture. In one of the reports, they have written that the central bank digital currency, as well as tokenization, is the future of the financial system, because it's cross-border, it's cross-currency transaction, and this will promote collaboration among different countries, not necessarily to the financial institutions. And during certain crises or circumstances, they can be bypassed, and the world can continue to function in order to have economic growth. So we learned our lessons from 2008, and you remember that in 2008, that is where Bitcoin white paper was written in response to the crisis. And this is one of the reasons why Satoshi has written that white paper, because most of the technology was available before that, but he has to choose, he has to choose the right timing to release that white paper. And you can see the wholesale bank, central bank digital currency and its various applications through distributed ledger is something that Bank of England, Bank of Canada, and MAS are looking into in their reports. And you can see that there is also a lot of implementation and policy challenges, because there are layers of international regulation, from tax benefits to AML, and as well as anti-terrorism. A lot of regulation that are overlapping. There are a lot of regulation that are on top of each other. There's so many layers that central bankers and financial institutions has to deal with. Okay? But there are other factors at work. Wealth inequality. You can see that this is the top 1% and top 0.1% between 1913 and 2012. You can see the share of the household wealth of a small percentage of people increasing over time. And this is something that we need to bear in mind. There's this underlying forces at work, and these are some of the political pressure that will ensure that the revolution will be accelerated. And you could see that again, the total income growth by percentile across all world regions, that the top 1% has captured 27% of the total growth between 1980 and 2016. And that has been accelerating because the top 1% owns a lot of physical property, and the property markets has been actually moving up in a very rapid fashion. So you can see the wealth concentration happening in people who actually have assets in their portfolio. So there is also a lot of pressure for financial reform. You can see that MAS has come out to say a few things about the need of a cultural change. I think the bank has changed a lot. I think financial institutions have been trying their best, but there's still layers of regulation, the layers of legislation that they have to deal with. And I think regulators understand that, and they are beginning to accelerate the kind of cultural reform. And you can see that you won't find the words private and bank side by side now. So during my time, I was doing a lot of private banking activities as a wealth manager, but it is not a very fashionable thing to say you're in private banking. A lot of us will say that we're in wealth management now. So we're a wealth manager, because banking become very transparent. And leverage growth by lending for property sales, real estate development is a thing of the past. Okay, and you look at the bank's earning, it's continued to be in the fashion of lending. interest rate income, but the rest of the activities in the banks are actually suffering. And we have to think of new way for inclusive growth. And that is where blockchain comes in. So all these forces at play will ensure that the revolution will accelerate as we go on. And the catalyst of change will be the twin goals of sustainability and impact. You will see that coming, and you will see that a lot of politicians are talking about we not only have to do well, we have to do good at the same time. So sustainability and impact are two twin goals that we are all targeting, and it's about time. Okay. You could see also a lot of banks, these are all the private banks, the leading private banks in the world, they realize that the positive impact do not necessarily have lower returns. They also find that the relationship between sustainability and financial performance are actually not necessarily negative. They also find that mission is important, okay, and they also think that bringing sustainability in the conversation with their clients has become very important. So the entire wealth management industry is changing, and that's where the money is. So you can see that there will be acceleration in impact investment, and blockchain is important to play a part in that. So remember that blockchain or ESG, okay, or impact investment is not an asset class. Okay, when you talk about all that, we are just a partner with people who wants to look into the mission of doing good. So it's not about putting 5% of money into strategy. It is about holistic portfolio for financial returns and impact. You have to consider the impact before you invest. For many good reasons. If the government subsidizes you, or you have a lower compliance cost, automatically your returns will actually go up. Because there's subsidy, your compliance cost is lower, and it's a general trend in the world that we are all promoting doing good. So this is important to know. Okay, now the main thing to understand is that the fourth industrial revolution is not about the cost of production, which is in 1980. It is not about the cost of information, which is about in 1990 with the internet. It is not about the cost of flow, where we have high frequency trading in the banks and in the financial market in the 2000. In the 2010, this is about the cost of trust. We are trying to reduce the cost of trust in the fourth industrial revolution. Okay, remember that. And therefore, the real disruptor is tokenization, because it facilitates untrusted parties to work together. And the world is full of untrusted parties. China versus America, ASEAN countries among themselves, they're all untrusted, but they can work together. They still can collaborate with tokenization. There's a convergence of technology, there's a convergence of industry. We need secure privacy protection with tokenization. We will accelerate transaction with tokenization because we have final settlement almost instantaneously. We are having cost reduction with blockchain and DLT, and we can increase the cost of hacking with ring signature, with zero knowledge proof, and so on, so that it will not be the target of the hackers, because blockchain can increase the cost of hacking while reducing the cost of trust. So you can see that the fifth factor is geopolitics, the alignment of interests of the weak. So in South China Morning Post, you can see that we now, from G20, have reduced to two supply chain blocks, China and America. And this is not going to stop here. This is going to continue. And at the moment, in Huawei, China supply accounts for 41% of Huawei supply. And American is accounting for 24.7%. We all hope that this will continue, but it seems that it's not. So you can see the 24.7% reducing. So that is a sad thing, but it's reality, and we have to ensure that we understand why that happens. And the reason why that happens is because there is this part in the middle where the physical world and the virtual world has actually converged in some sense. And the chipset have converged the physical and the virtual worlds into the life of human, and the chipsets have linked AI, Internet of Things, and blockchain more and more as time goes on. So it is not a trade war. It is a chip war that we are talking about. And blockchain plays an important part because we have worked a lot on software, but now we're looking at embedded software. We are looking at trusted executable environment. So we are moving from software together with hardware in the blockchain world as well. And chipset will come in as we go ahead into the future. So this is what the Prime Minister Lee of Singapore has said, that small states should work together. And I think blockchain philosophy is about working together, collaborating, especially on trusted party. And we will see more of that. And Singapore can be a node. You can see again the blockchain terminology about being a node of the entire ecosystem. Again, the blockchain mentality and the philosophy of being a node and not a center of the future development become the key idea of those small countries, the weak and the neglected. And this is what it is. In the sixth factor I talked about, the fear of the Skynet, the fear of the Black Mirror stories that we hear, and about hacking. And we have the distributed technology, which is coded governance. And then we have the token, which is the incentives for decentralization. We have smart contract, which is executable governance. It may not be a contract, but it's an agreement that can be executed. And it leads to convergence of technology and blockchain and a lot of other technologies. And then do we have DAO? Does it lead to singularity? Does it lead to human-centric, or is this going to be a Skynet? Now, this is something we talk about in the Endgame. Where are we heading, Skynet or human-centric? Well, once full convergence has been achieved, AI robots will be infinitely more powerful than all physical and human intelligence combined. And the future cannot be predicted, but making the right choice will increase the chances of good outcome. So if you do not want a Skynet, that's where the blockchain community has to come together and say that what are we trying to do here, right? And the possible bad outcomes will be that you have a digital empire, centralized data and wealth. Okay, you could have a surveillance capitalism. There's no privacy, no security, no safety, or it could be just a Skynet where there's centralized AI or plenty of organized crime. So this is something that the blockchain community needs to think about, and you can see that Bank Negara, especially Alliance for Financial Inclusion, they are all looking into financial inclusion. And they came out with a table of the 10 critical enablers for e-financial inclusion. Because inclusiveness is important, and it includes stable and inclusive mobile connectivity, interoperable payment gateway, redress the consumer law, strong cybersecurity framework, robust regulatory and supervisory system and capacity, adoption of proportional regulation, digital ID, regulation sandbox, comprehensive data ecosystem, talent, knowledge, skills, and digital literacy. I have modified that for blockchain. What do we need for the 10 enablers for blockchain mass adoption? We'll need fast, stable internet, mobile mesh network connectivity. Right? We'll need interoperable value transfer gateway. We need privacy protection for user. We need strong security framework. We need open source and trust distribution governance. Right? We need digital literacy and good user experience. We need digital ID. We need compliance, easy environment. We need a comprehensive data and Oracle ecosystem. We need the right talent, not just talent. Right talent, knowledge, and skill. Then we will have mass adoption. So the value of blockchain is a combination of open blockchain, private blockchain, consortium blockchain, together with distributed communication. It is important to have distributed communication, distributed trust, and distributed privacy protection. Okay. And then we can have 24/7 communication distributed. We can have smart contract with tokenization, maintaining human independence and dignity. And remember that machine must not surpass human control. We have seen how that has caused airline disaster, when human cannot control the software. And prevention of hackers taking over centralized control of the entire traffic system and entire smart cities, increasing the cost of vicious attack and formation of monopoly or collusion. These are all danger for the virtual world. So, well, live use cases. A lot of people ask, are there live use cases? There are plenty. A lot of them are in the audience. We have seen in shipping, supply chain, the Novanim is in the audience doing shipping, trade financing, supply chain financing, like Trade Lands, Deliver, Calista, Trade Trust. In the case of Deliver, bringing Samsung, ABM, Amro, and the port together. So it's a convergence of industry working together to get blockchain working, right? And live use cases including FinTech. We have seen the Sentinel chain for livestock, ATech for aid and donation, Smart Mesh for communication. I want to talk a little bit more about distributed communication, okay? Which is it's important. The internet is still centralized. You can talk about decentralization using blockchain, using cryptocurrency, but when you talk about DNS, you talk about a lot of other communication, it is still centralized. And that is the key. You can't be doing decentralization with a centralized communication network. So here, you should have gateway functionality distributed, as well as distributed network hub, okay, for routing, for storage, and connect distribution. Okay? And we have seen Meshbox. I think they're in the audience. Meshbox, Smart Mesh. And this is what they have. It can be powered by green energy, which is solar energy, offshore, outdoor. It can be used for disaster, because when there's a disaster, all communication is down, but the Meshbox, the Smart Mesh, your handphone, can continue distributed communication. And also, you can serve the underserved in the remote areas, in the farms, in the fishing ports, in different areas. So these are some of the things that we need to think about in the blockchain community. If you want internet, you can always connect to any other satellite. And we can see that China, as well as Elon Musk, is sending a lot of mini satellite into the sky so that we can have more distributed communication. And blockchain is one of the drivers for that. And you can earn your tokens by providing network bandwidth, spectrum mining, or you can assist the nodes through payment channels. You could provide storage and get paid for it. You can provide content distribution and get paid for it. So these are all the things that the blockchain can do, and is already in operation. It is not something that we are talking about, but it's actually real use cases that we've been doing. So the desired outcome will be to complement what government and corporates have failed to attain. We are not here to compete with the corporates or the government. Think about what the government and the corporate cannot attain, cannot achieve. And the blockchain project should complement them, to complement and not to complete. And the national and regional stablecoin with least centralization. As a blockchain community, we should not introduce more centralization. If stablecoin belongs to the government, then we should promote fiat stablecoin. That is what it is. We shouldn't introduce more centralization by being you yourself as a center. That is not the philosophy of a blockchain community. We are supposed to get rid of more center, not to introduce more. So then we can have cross-border 24/7 and distributed trust. We need to support the government to get the centralized fiat currency going. And blockchain as a new business model, not a software. How much value can blockchain worth if it becomes just a software to increase efficiency? As an investor, I can tell you, as time goes on, it's not worth anything. It will just be forgotten. It's just being used. But you have a new business model, then blockchain is worth a lot more. So what we want is new business model, just not a piece of software. Okay? So bear that in mind. Then you can have fractional digital assets, you can have value exchange, new and empowering financial products with tokenization for pension fund. Okay, pension fund needs blockchain. Okay, larger sources of ESG products with impact clearly defined and tradable. Okay, new economic method of capital raising. Okay, we need capital raising. We need cheap capital, not to have something which lots of compliance, but compliance easy, which means that you have to work with the regulator, with self-regulation. Okay? So we need to have more desired outcome or new form of crowd-funded cheap capital for the emerging economies, because emerging economies do not have access to cheap capital. Blockchain can bring that to the emerging economy and allow them to leapfrog many of the financial centers. We need privacy protection. We need smart city cybersecurity. We need blockchain as a coded governance and smart contract as executable governance and agreement. Not necessarily a contract on top of that. Now, inclusiveness is the most important thing because it means interoperability, it means inter-technology, it means international exchange, it means each different blockchain becomes a functional node, okay? And decentralization, social scalability, and security, it means establishing institutional consensus and sustainable development. It means open source software, open source hardware, open source data. And that is what the chip war is about. What we need is open source software, hardware, as well as open source data, so that we have privacy protection, and whenever anyone uses our data, we will be informed, and it is their duty to inform us and get permission each time they wish to use our data. So really, I don't see any dragon in this room. Not any dragon that is letting out fire to destroy. We are not talking about any hidden agenda. We are all together in this world. We are all here to serve the society. We are not here to rule. We are here to complete. We are here not to compete. And this is what the blockchain spirit is about, to be inclusive. And what is the purpose of what we are doing? We need to always ask the same question and not lose the original purpose every day we wake up and doing our startup, our project. What are we trying to do? What was Satoshi talking about? What was the entire community of cypherpunk thinking about? They were just thinking about two things, okay, which is about the choices that we can make. We must continue to maintain an environment that we can make choices, okay, for our own independent choices. And in the virtual world, that is not guaranteed. And blockchain community has a role to play. We have a mission to guarantee our choices are protected, so that every day when we wake up, we still have our independence and we still have our dignity. That's what we are working for. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the talk.